Here's Clinton Yates. Deadline day for the Giants and Saquon Barkley. What does it mean? And what does Joel Embiid mean when he says he wants the championship in Philly or anywhere else? Let's go around the horn.
I think he means there's like 31 other teams in the league that he could play for and maybe win a championship with.
How many teams in the league, Israel?
Oh, yeah? Which one?
Right?
32? 31 more?
29. No long-term deal, and at the moment, no franchise tag signed. It appears Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants are not on the same page, maybe not reading from the same book. Today's deadline came and went 1 hour ago, and it means the only deal he can play on this year is the franchise tag. $10 million, a little bit more, for the season, but nothing guaranteed beyond that. Barkley could hold out, could sign the tag and demand a trade, maybe. Anything's possible, I guess. So around the horn we go to our NFL reporter, Courtney Cronin. Where are we now? Where are the Giants now? Where is Saquon Barkley now?
Well, he was trying to throw a Hail Mary by adding CAA to his contract negotiation team, along with his longtime representation, Rock Nation. That clearly didn't get him any closer to the long-term deal that he was seeking. So the option is, he can either hold out all season or show up and sign the tag. I don't think he shows up for training camp. I think he does play this season, though. Some curious timing on the comments that came out from former Pittsburgh running back Le'Veon Bell the other day, talking about the regret that he had in not signing that franchise tag, in staying with the Steelers. We know what happened from then on. He goes to the Jets. He makes less money per year on average with the Jets than he would have on his Pittsburgh deal, and he made $10 million less in guarantees than Todd Gurley did. He wanted to reset the running back market. He didn't. I think that Saquon Barkley is smart enough to know that history very well could repeat itself if he were to sit out this year.
Kevin Blackistone.
Well, this is problematic because if there's one thing the Giants know and all the NFL knows is that the Giants are a significantly better team with Saquon Barkley than without. And Daniel Jones in particular as a quarterback, his quarterback rating is 91.4 with Saquon Barkley, 77.3 without Saquon Barkley. So this is a big, big gamble on the part of the New York Giants, not one that I think that they should have taken. I think they even owe Saquon Barkley a better deal, given that he came back so ferociously from a horrific injury that really flattened that team for a season. And he's proven his worth to that team. And I think sometimes that's the kind of value that you should have in a player.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking they're biting off the nose to spite their face type?
Absolutely.
Speaking of flattening, we're flattening your score just a little bit for a banned word in that answer. Israel Gutierrez, I turn to you now, the position the Giants are in.
30 NBA teams. Sorry about that. No, look, I think when this New York Giants team ended last season, there was this sort of good feelings around them, obviously, making the playoffs and everything else. And there's this idea, hey, we can win with that duo of Saquon and Daniel Jones. But then when you get to the negotiation parts and you get to this part of the season, you realize, oh, we don't have to pay Saquon Barkley at all that. We talked about the running back market and what it actually is. And, yeah, there are other players, other running backs out there that still don't have a job. Ezekiel Elliott's not on a team. Dalvin Cook's not on a team. Tony Pollard had to take the franchise tag. So you look at the Giants and you're saying, yeah, he means a lot to that team. But, you know, he had 32 rushes of 10-plus yards. You know who had 27 rushes of 10-plus yards? Daniel Jones did. So that's the guy who gets paid for throwing it as well. So it's just not that high of a value. And, you know, after a certain point, you just have to deal with the numbers and you just have to, you know, do what's right for your business. And the business is not paying running backs a whole lot of money or committing to them for a long period of time.
And Clinton Yates.
Exactly. It feels like Le'Veon Bell was the old warhorse in the fight for the integrity of running backs in terms of the money that they make in this league. It is never going to be quarterback money, at least in our generation, in terms of what they get. Josh Jacobs led the league in running last year for the Raiders, and the guy got franchise tagged as well. This is simply how this goes. So you feel bad. But, KB, that injury that you referred to, whilst he came back from it and it was a noble effort as an athlete, is also a reason to say, yeah, maybe we don't want a long-term deal on a running back who runs that much and we need. So it's an unfortunate double-edged sword in terms of how running backs are looked at in this league and in this day.
Kevin Blackistone.
And that's exactly why he should consider holding out, because you only have your health in this league. As you know, for so long, the running back position is the most injured, shortest career in the NFL. Right. And you have to look out for your health.
So that would mean hold out to prove a point, then maybe he can't just demand a trade. He has to sign the franchise, and then he theoretically would demand a trade, Kevin, in your mind?
Well, that's what I would do. Unless you just want to prove your worth by missing a little over $500,000 per weekend by not playing, which is a lot of dough.
And Courtney Cronin, I'll give you the last word on this.
So to Clinton's point about Josh Jacobs, he too needs to be talked about in all of this. 3 1,000-yard seasons in 4 tries. He's 25 years old. He hasn't had the injury history that Saquon Barkley has, and they have more quarterback uncertainty, potentially with Jimmy Garoppolo in Las Vegas. So if there's any example that you can use here to say this guy absolutely should have the long-term deal, it's Josh Jacobs, yet we're not talking about it enough.
We move now to the news of the weekend. Carlos Alcaraz's moment atop the mountain at 20. His first Wimbledon. 5th set, second game, Djokovic believed he missed the smash. Can't believe it. A bit later, taking the frustration out on the wood. Whilst that was happening, to use your word, Clinton Yates, I heard that before, everything from Alcaraz was a masterpiece, and that's how quick it came. Carlos Alcaraz's moment, his dream, first person to beat Djokovic at Wimbledon in 5 years. It was an epic match. Was it a transformative match, Yates, on yesterday? And the big news for Alcaraz.
I think it was to a degree. Now, let's think about this. Unforced errors, slightly even. Second points won, slightly even. But forehand winners, Alcaraz dominated. And just watching that game, that match, it appeared as if Novak was simply outmatched. He was out-physicaled, he was outsmarted, and he lost the psychological battle as well. He was on his butt 3 or 4 times, literally on the court. He kept getting beat on the forehand. And when he smashed his racket into the net, he injured his wrist as well. A literal, self-inflicted wound from a guy that very rarely loses there. To see Alcaraz stay in the moment and stay on that level of tennis, to me, was something that, as even having seen him play in New York, when he won that U.S. Open, I could not believe how well he handled that entire thing, and he deserved to win.
Israel Gutierrez, was this a transformative moment in tennis?
Well, it's a continuation of something that's been happening. You mentioned the U.S. Open, him winning that. And this one, at 20 years old, he is showing not that he is at the level of Djokovic, that he has surpassed him slightly. And that at 20 years old, he is going to be this next great tennis star. And this is the way it was going to happen, right? You weren't going to get somebody that just worked his way up and peaked at 27 and finally broke through and beat Djokovic. No, it was going to be a young guy who was doing this, who has everything in his game, who can get to every ball and then return it with whatever shot he wants. And you're looking at a more physical version of Novak Djokovic right back at you here. And him doing it to Djokovic on center court where he hasn't lost since 2013. Yeah, it's a continuation of Alcaraz coming up as the next great, the current rather, great tennis player. He might get 20 more of these before it's said and done.
Kevin Blackstone, got to give you some points right now. You picked Alcaraz over Djokovic on Friday. There's your bonus. What did we just witness?
Well, you just witnessed one of the great displays in the history of Wimbledon, the 3rd longest match between men and a guy beating a guy who's a 23-time champion. I mean, that was an amazing display. And not only that, I felt watching that first set that I was like, oh, this is going to end. This could end so badly for Alcaraz. He's down 6-1, and then he just storms back and takes control of this with all of his athleticism, those beautiful drop shots that caught Djokovic off kilter at times. He was masterful, and then to see him show the enthusiasm and joy, the smile that he had on his face, knowing what he was about to accomplish. So, is this transformational? No, but it gives us a budding rivalry right now. Can't wait for the U.S. Open. It's not going to last that long, right? Because Djokovic's career is going to come to an end in the next few years.
Whoa!
But
if you say so. I mean, he had won the last 5 years. They had first loss in 5 years, Kevin, at Wimbledon. Courtney Cronin, was this transformative for tennis?
Absolutely. Djokovic hadn't lost at Wimbledon in 2,195 days in this whole David and Goliath matchup that you look at between the old 36 years old Djokovic and 20-year-old Alcaraz. This is what tennis needed. Tennis was becoming too predictable in the men's game, and that's not taking anything away from Djokovic. I said I took him versus the field, so if you want to dock me some points for that, go for it.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much.
He was going for his 24th Grand Slam. The fact is, now we have a real rivalry that we can look at, not just for like the next couple of years, but probably for the next like 6-7 years. Djokovic has shown no signs of slowing down at 36 years old. I think this is one that we're going to end up seeing again at the U.S. Open next month. And if Alcaraz gets Djokovic again, then watch out, because this is becoming way more not as one-sided as it's appeared, at least in this last
Israel
little
Gutierrez
stretch.
back in.
I love Alcaraz crediting Martina Navratilova for giving him some advice to maybe slice a little bit more, and him just talking about it afterward. And I can't believe it worked. Thank you so much for the advice, sort of bringing together the generations there. It was just a great moment.
And KB, last word.
Well, that's what I'm saying, what Courtney just said. This is a rivalry we're going to have for the next few years. No Serena, Federer's gone, Nadal is hurt. This is, to me, Alcaraz taking Nadal's place right now, the Spaniard for the Spaniard.
Not
It is
joking.
great.
I could do
Right.
that. Quinn Nace, last word.
I just couldn't believe that he actually had the crowd. These humans have seen Novak do it a ton of times, and they were still more interested in seeing the young man from Spain, and he did it.
You know what I found out? I'm not happy or proud. There's a king of Spain? I didn't know that. There's a king of Spain. The king of Spain was there yesterday. No crown, though. All right, we'll be back. Fire Sale next. NBA had gone about 3 days without any drama, so here we go. Joel Embiid's comments to Maverick Carter during Uninterrupted Film Festival in LA.
I just want to win a championship. Whatever it takes. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or, anywhere else.
Philly or anywhere else, Israel Gutierrez. What does that mean?
It means Philly fans should be a little nervous. I mean, look, you look around the league and see Joel Embiid. He's the MVP. Damian Lillard, does he want to play with the MVP? Reportedly, no. He wants to play in Miami. And just go look at the list of things that Joel Embiid has been through as a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. He has been loyal to this franchise. But now you've got James Harden on your squad, and he might not want to be there again. So you're talking about a new coach, potentially a new star teammate. Again, for Joel Embiid, if I were him, I'd be getting a little tired of it and wanting to ask out soon.
Kevin Blackstone.
Yeah, but you're talking about a new coach in Nick Nurse that Joel Embiid supposedly interviewed in the offseason and gave his approval to, a guy who he kind of likes to think he could play for. So you've got that in play. And James Harden's not going anywhere because the baggage that he brings with him and the cost he would be to another team to make a deal is probably too great.
Really? Wait a second. Hold on. We say that about this is an untradeable contract. Oh, there's no way they could ever be. Everybody gets dealt in the NBA if they want to. Do you hear a player, the reigning MVP, beginning to open a door to leave Philadelphia, Kevin?
Well, he's got a couple more years left on an extension that they just gave him in 2021. He just had a great year. They won 54 games. They were better than they've ever been. MVP kind of guy. I mean, why would you want to lose?
I'm not hearing an answer to the question. Courtney Cronin, did you hear an MVP just crack open a door about maybe moving on?
No, I didn't. I'm selling that Joel Embiid might be bailing on the process. He doesn't have his eye on the exit. He's just looking at himself as a big man at this point of his career, coming off of an MVP and realizing the window is finite to win a championship. So this is not him trying to put out the idea that he wants to go anywhere other than Philadelphia. He's been through a ton with this franchise. This team is not better, though, if James Harden is not on the roster with Joel Embiid. So to me, this is a message to the front office. Get something done with James Harden. Comes off a season where he led the league in assists, because those two had a nice correlation factor in Joel Embiid winning the MVP last year. They don't have time to punt on this season. That's how I read it.
Yates.
I'm stunned that Izzy didn't offer up Tyler Hero for Joel Embiid straight up, since we know that everybody wants to be a part of Heat culture. But overall, I think this is just a good look at the state of the NBA from a guy who's been around for a lot. A lot of other people mentioned it. He's seen every phase of franchise in the Sixers try to become a contender, and he was there, obviously, when Nick Nurse and the Raptors got by on a bounce in. And if he looks around and says, you know what, guys are going this way, guys are going that way, that's just what happens in the NBA now. So the door has been wide open. He just walked to the front and looked over.
So you
on the
do
court and
believe
said,
that? Okay.
There could be
All
a
right.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Israel believes that kind of. Kevin and Courtney don't. I would ask you to turn into Philadelphia Sports Radio right now and see what they think. We'll move on. Buy or sell two. American Century Celebrity Golf Championship. Steph Curry was cooking. He had a hole-in-one on Saturday. He had a walk-off eagle for the win on Sunday. Clinton, I know you were locked into this. Buy or sell Steph here. Buy or sell Steph as a golfer, as good as he is a basketball player, and what does this do for his legendary status?
I'm going to buy Steph as simply a great American entertainer. Forget about basketball. The hole-in-one was one thing, takes a 150-yard dash straight down the field. The eagle was another. He runs over to his wife, Aisha, who's jumping up and down and hugs her. Dell's there, his son Cannon's there. We don't get family moments like this in sports. That was the best one of the weekend.
Israel Gutierrez.
It's not even his sport, and he's giving you moment after moment after moment when all the lights are on and people are watching. I think he's the greatest showman I've ever seen across sports. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of what? Jordan Spieth having 6 threes and a quarter in an NBA game? Now, I understand world-class athletes translating from one sport to another, but it doesn't work the other way around.
Kevin Blackistone.
You got to love his enthusiasm, the same enthusiasm he brings to the NBA court he just brought to the links. That was fantastic to see. The hole-in-ones, those happen from time to time, the theory of big numbers, but the eagle to close it out, that's the stamp of approval that he just put on golf. Great golfer.
Looking like somebody who shoots routinely over 90% from the free throw line. It's just awesome stuff, and golf means a lot to Stephen Curry. This isn't just some hobby that he dabbles in from time to time. He got the PGA's Ambassador of Golf Award recently, and that hasn't been given out to a non-PGA athlete since the 1980s. He's a great ambassador for the sport. I just get irritated because I want to do something like that on the golf course.
These
because I'm an
celebrity
amateur
golf
just like
tournaments
him.
happen, though. There's a history of this stuff, and it was always the kicker, Al Del Greco winning, or the pitcher, Rick Rhoden. It was never like an all-time great player in another sport. Amazing. One more story here. Tyreek Hill on his podcast, It Needed to Be Said, saying he'll have a 2,000-yard receiving yard season and a Super Bowl this year. Courtney, buy or sell?
Not buying the Super Bowl just yet. There might not even be the best team in their division, but I'm buying he could get close to 2,000 yards. We know Calvin Johnson holds the record, 1,964 yards. Tyreek Hill was on pace to get there last year and then slowed down towards the end of the season. If he stays true to his word, he'll have this season and 2 more to get close or beat 2,000 receiving yards. He says he's going to retire after his 10th season in the
Kevin
NFL.
Blackstone?
Oh, yeah, he can get there. I mean, Cooper Kupp, we just saw him do it, 17-10 for him last year, but it's not all up to him. We know that all eyes are on the health of Tua this year at quarterback. If Tua can stay upright, and we certainly hope that he does, then the possibility is there. If not, don't see it.
Yeah, Courtney said it. He was on pace, and why did he fall off of pace? It was because of Tua Tagovailoa's injuries. It wasn't because Tyreek didn't have a great year. And so, yeah, not only can he do it, he's going to do it. There, it needed to be said.
Ah, yes, there's the guarantee from our South Florida reporter, Clinton Yates.
I'm selling what he said. I'm also selling the name of this podcast because this did not need to be said. It'd be one thing if he pointed out that the Dolphins overall are going to make a Super Bowl run and this was how they were going to do it. Instead, he's talking about what he's going to do because he believes he's the guy. And oh, yeah, by the way, they'll win the Super Bowl. Come on.
You know what it is? It's Podcasting 101. He did a good job getting his show and his name out there. That's what he did. One thing needs to be said, this is the 17-game season, right? So 2,000 yards isn't what 2,000 yards could have been when it was Johnson or Rice before him. Thank you, Kevin Blackstone, Courtney Cronin, Yates, Gutierrez. Showdown next. Clint Yates, Israel Gutierrez, tighten up in showdown. DeAndre Hopkins' decision to tighten up, to go to Tennessee when he had his pick of any team in the National Football League. He said he wanted to play with a contender and with a quarterback, Clinton. How game-changing is this decision for Tennessee?
Not very much. I mean, even the Tennessee Titans don't necessarily even know who their QB is. I think he went to the team where he knows the most people, and he was going to be able to get the most money, which is smart for this stage of his career.
Israel?
Well, he said he wanted to play for contender. Did he say this year? Because it doesn't feel like the Titans are going to contend. I do think he's going to get his numbers up, though, because their leading receiver last year was Robert Woods with 520-something, and he's not on the team anymore.
They could have had A.J. Brown a few years ago. Does he go the same route as Randy Moss and Julio Jones, as Andre Johnson, stat-wise? Because that didn't go up for them. We'll split the point. We'll move on. Showdown 2. 2 wow performances from All-Star Weekend. Jewel Lloyd, 31, the scoring record in the All-Star game as the MVP. But we're still wowing over the day before. Sabrina Ionescu in the 3. She hit 25 of 27 shots. Yes, we're going to show them all super fast because this is just incredible. Israel, what's the takeaway from All-Star Weekend?
I mean, to me, it's Ionescu kicking off the weekend like that. When you've got Steph Curry tweeting about you and saying he wants to challenge you in a three-point shooting contest, that's a huge deal.
Clinton Yates.
Not only did she hit 25 of 27 and got Steph coming off the golf course making points about her, she made 20 in a row. We can't do 20 in a row of anything, anybody in this room, in order to win something, and she managed to nail that.
Clinton Yates threw 20 seconds in a row here for FaceTime.
The Women's World Cup begins this week down in Australia and New Zealand, and I know that everybody's focused on the U.S. women's national team potentially getting 3 in a row, but the exciting part about this tournament is that it has expanded. There are more teams, and there are 8 first-timers. I don't want to get this wrong. Haiti, Morocco, Panama, the Philippines, Portugal, Republic of Ireland, Vietnam, and Zambia. This experience for all of these young ladies who get to do something new on the larger stage is going to be fantastic to watch. It ain't just us versus the world. The whole globe is going to be there.
So close.
Thank you, Clinton Yates. That's it for today. 23.5 hour break. See you tomorrow around the horn.